these decks!
How's it going, everyone? I'm Raging Raven, and this is a Dragonmaid Dogma deck profile. Your eyes and your ears are not playing tricks on you. I had this deck idea in mind a little bit ago, a few weeks ago, when I was chatting with one of my friends on how much of a good engine the Dogmatica engine was, and how much that it would work well with decks that only needed one extra deck monster on the board. Then I suddenly remember the Dragonmaids, and I thought to myself, wait a minute, can these actually work together? Let's actually find out. This deck! What the fuck did I just make? Just so that I can let you guys know what I'm on about, I'm going to shut up and we're actually going to dive into this deck profile. First off, the maids. We have triple copies of Parlor Dragonmaid. Parlor in the deck is an overall foolish burial, and bloody hell, she gets better and better over time. The fact that a lot of Dragonmaid cards can easily recur themselves from the graveyard is just insane, and at the same time, a fusion spell can bounce itself back with this card, and that it can set up a graveyard as well for later on plays. Parlor is just absurd. The amount of diversity that she has is literally insane. To follow Parlor, we have possibly equally a good card as her, is 3 copies of Chamber Dragonmaid. Now, if Parlor sets up a graveyard, Chamber sets you up for your first turn initial play of getting out Shao. Chamber practically just does everything that she needs to do. She adds a Dragonmaid spell or trap from your deck to your hand. I'm a little bit bouncing back and forth between what I'm running in the deck at the moment for my picks, primarily because with all the Dogmatica stuff that I've got, I still have Tunadia Servants if you haven't seen my other video. Then there you go. But this is what I think is actually really good about the deck. If you open up with Chamber and actually get her to continue off with a plays continuing forward, this card is just ludicrous, and I'm really excited to see what her Dragon form can do in the future. Moving along, we have the original most expensive card of the deck, being 3 copies of Kitchen Dragonmaid. Now, Kitchen's effect is only that she can add from deck to hand, and then she has to send a card from hand to the graveyard immediately afterwards. But in all honesty, that effect still can help out the Dragonmaid strategy in the long term, especially when it comes to actually getting a hold of Chamber and then having a way to summon out Chamber like Hospitality, or even World Legacy Guard Dragon if you happen to draw World Legacy Guard Dragon. Finally, for the Dragonmaids, I'm only running 1 Nurse. I was originally running 2 Nurse, but with the Dogmatica engine, I think 1 is more than enough. Primarily because she's always going to be set up in the graveyard one way or another by either Parlor or Kitchen, and when that happens, you're just ready and waiting to go. Lastly, we got, for the time being, one of each of the Dragonmaid's dragon forms, being Parlor's Dragonmaid form being Lapa, Kitchen's Dragonmaid being Ticket, and Nurse's Dragonmaid being Ernest. I can't believe I was way off with that one. Whoops. Each one of these Dragonmaids have their own unique effects, but each one actually acts as a beta in some form of circumstance as well. Lapa actually makes it so that you can discard her to negate the effects of one monster on your opponent's side of the field. Unfortunately, she's not a quick effect, which is kind of a downside for her. Tinkek is actually a quick effect, and so is Ernest, but Tinkek is kind of like a pseudo-honest for the archetype, boosting the Dragonmaid's attack power by 2000, whereas Ernest just special summons a Dragonmaid monster from hand there and then. These are great. So before I move along into the Dogmaticas, this is the final dragon, kinda, of the deck, that being 1 Tempest. Okay, so finally for the Dogmaticas, I am running triple copies of Ecclesia. There's literally nothing else that needs to be said about Ecclesia. She summons herself if there is an extra deck monster on the field, and she adds a Dogmatica card from deck to hand. This card is just downright nuts. Really? Moving along with the Dogmaticas, I am running 2 copies of Fleur de Lis. Yes, I decided to move up to 2, primarily because it's just a lot better than 1. Now, I do think 3 is cloggy, but when I have 2 of them, I can easily just get around with any and everything that I need. It's just great as a whole. Of course, at the same time, I'm running the 1 Maximus. Maximus can easily just set up the grave regardless of what you can do, and it can actually help out with later on plays for anything else that can actually pop up. Maximus is just amazing in the deck. The hand trap section now is a complete disaster, and you're gonna see why, but for what it can do, it's just fine by itself. And that is, to start things off, 2 copies of Effect Veiler. Since I don't have to worry about Caught by the Grave right now, Effect Veiler is just going hand to hand just amazingly well. But, as well at the same time, I'm running 2 copies of No Material, Both of these cards are pretty much game enders. Effect Veiler can pretty much stop effects there and then, whilst No Material can stop a monster from being used as anything from the extra deck, or even be tribute summoned for that matter. But the card is just amazing. Both of these cards are amazing. Continuing along, we have double copies of Ash. There's a good reason why we have Ash in the deck, let's just be honest about that. Ash pretty much makes it so that your opponent cannot add anything from their deck to the hand, so that's already good in amongst itself. Finally, to Phantasme. Thanks to Hawkeye Vibrax and many other Link monsters coming into the meta now, Phantasme is just here to help gain the advantage over them, especially when it comes to trying to draw out cards like Effect Veiler, No Material, just to stop them in their tracks. The card is amazing. Whilst cards like Nibiru are still good enough cards to use in the meta, yes, it's not that great at the moment, primarily because there's a lot of decks that can still counter it, at least from what I've witnessed. Plus, with cards like Driver and Lambda still running around the place, I kinda want to make sure that I have insurance policy like this, rather than something like Nibiru. Okay, moving along into the Spell and Traps, I'm running 3 copies of Dragonmaid Hospitality. Oh god, this is a fantastic card. Special summons a Dragonmaid from your hand or graveyard, and then it gives you the option to send a Dragonmaid of a similar attribute, but different level, from your deck to the graveyard. Why say no to that? And 1 Dragonmaid changeover. I don't like this ratio. I'm going to bump this up to 2 as soon as I possibly can. Problem is, it's just deciding what to take out. But 1 changeover, fine for the time being. Double copies of Nadir's Servant. Like I said, I only have 2. The fact that it can send any extra deck monster from your extra deck to the graveyard to add a Dogmatica card is just simply amazing, and yes, you'll be seeing one particular card coming up soon that will be the pure reason to why this card is just nuts. Double copies of World Legacy Guard Dragon. The card is just amazing, why say no to it? Allowing me to special summon a level 4 or lower dragon type monster from my graveyard, i.e. a lot of the Dragon Maids, this card is just simply phenomenal for what it can do. 1 Monster Reborn. Look, for a card as powerful as this, I'm going to be running it in as much decks as I possibly can for the time being until a better substitute can come out. And honestly, there's no better substitute. Now then, here's an interesting one. 1 Dragonmaid Tidying. Tidying is legitimately an odd one for me, and it's a card I'm contemplating on taking out for a second Dragonmaid changeover, but it shouldn't be ignored for what it can do. What it does is that it's a compulse for 1 dragon you control and a card your opponent controls. Then when it's in the graveyard, it special summons a Dragonmaid back to the field. This card is just simply nutty for what it can do. The 1 Dogmatica Punishment. Punishment is ludicrous. It pops a card on your opponent's side of the field by sending a card from your extra deck to the graveyard. Why say no to that? Plus, at the same time, the card that this can send can be anything. The fact that this is a common as well is just simply dumb in that regards. Finally, 1 Shadow Schism. Yes, I'm running my Shadows. For the extra deck, we are running 2 copies of House and 2 copies of Shao. Now, House is only going to be brought out by Shao's effect, but that doesn't mean that Shao is bad by herself, or House is bad by herself. These 2 still serve a similar purpose, and they are literally just insane. Shao is basically an Omni-Negate, whilst House is basically a constant popper. Both of these cards can summon out Dragonmaids from your hand or graveyard, but both of them are pretty much different in circumstances for what they can do. Shao, for instance, can only do level 9 or lower monsters, and she doesn't have to target a monster in order to bring it out, whilst House, at the same time, can pretty much target a Dragonmaid monster you currently have on the field to summon out a counterpart from the hand or graveyard. The Access Code Talker engine in the form of Selene and Access Code Talker. Look, for an engine as strong as this, I'm of course going to be running it. The 1 Heretic Spheres. It's just insane. The targets for Punishment and Maximus, we have 1 Fossil Skull Knight, 2 Elder Entity Nts, and 1 Titaniclad. All 3 of these pretty much pop a card, however these 2 are as soon as they enter the graveyard, and this guy is just upon your main phase, whereas this guy adds a card from your deck to hand during the end phase. I'm running 2 copies of Shaddoll Winder, primarily because as soon as 1 goes you could use the other one for a second one, and just having Winder on board is just literally insane. The 1 Construct, it sent off a Maximus to add back Schism when you get it, but at the same time you can actually bring out Construct, depending on how your hand goes with the Dragonmaid plays. And 1 Apkallone, and I don't need to explain why Apkallone is in here. That's the deck! Like I said, this deck is practically amazing for what it can do, and from what I figured out as well, I'm shocked that this actually works. Just the fact that I only need Xiao to do anything is just insane, and the Dogmatica cards add a little bit of extra utility as well, especially with using punishment. Oh god, this deck is amazing. So I hope you have enjoyed the list, and if you have any suggestions on how I can make it better, feel free to leave them in the comments section down below. I'll give anyone £5 if anyone suggests to remove a Dogmatica engine. Regardless though, I have been a Raging Raven, and until next time, I bid you all adieu.